several weeks ago, I had I don't quite want to call it good fortune, but I visited the fire zone for the first time with Chancellor Hokoana, some of his team, others from UH, and we were hosting federal officials. That was the point. And I just want to acknowledge the interest of the federal government. Doesn't often talk about the University of Hawaii and our roles, but we had in particular support from the US Department of Education, who, for one, I think all of us should appreciate the support of our congressional delegation in pushing agencies hard to help us as much as possible. They noted several sources of funding that were not obvious to us, both for institutions, but also for our students directly. And they also, from the financial aid perspective, were very clear about pretty substantial flexibility that we have to exercise in extraordinary circumstances of natural disasters, to be able to provide more aid to students than we would be allowed to do under normal conditions. So it was daunting, but it was also very rewarding, I'll say. The other comment I want to make is kind of a breaking news item. Last month, as you know, I had the very great privilege and honor of letting the Lahainaluna high school seniors know in person that we were offering every one of those seniors a full scholarship for tuition fees and supplies for the next academic year. We really wanted to encourage them to apply and attend college. And the first question a student asked me is if there's a catch, and I said no. The second question is if for just 1 year, and I answered that we had an initial commitment for 1 year, but we were hoping to raise private funds. And just 2 days ago, we got word that one of our requests for additional funding has been accepted. I'm not disclosing the name or the amount today, but it is enough for us to extend the offer of that scholarship for 2 years or 4 years to every Lahainaluna high school senior, depending on whether they attend a community college or UH University. I won't, yeah, thank you. And I didn't want to go bother them, but I asked the principal to let the students know today. So they're the only people who heard this before you. Secondly, I want to update you on a broadband project, and this has been, especially for those of you on the RCUH board, I think it has come up, and I think it's important for the regents to understand our role in this. Interestingly, some of you have been on the board for a few years, may remember Jan Sullivan when she was a regent announcing at a board meeting when all of the federal money was being announced for broadband that UH should really be leading this work. And I sort of smiled and laughed. I had chaired a broadband task force 2007, 8-ish, and UH was very involved in this area. And we were not really involved at the time, but as this funds became available from the federal COVID-related act, the congressional delegation reached out to Governor Ige, to Finance Chair Sylvia Luke, to plan a strategy to maximize the impact of what's really a once-in-a-generation investment, but through a number of different bills, funding sources, and agencies. And the Hawaii interest was driven by, in particular, we're here on Kauai, which was cut off from the internet for a number of days just a few years ago due to a single fiber cut. And we've had similar situations on Maui. And there was strong interest in preventing that from happening again and creating a more competitive environment within the state for broadband services. So specific language to support the use of federal broadband funds for submarine fiber is something that Senator Schatz's office got into the bills. This is unusual because no other state worries about submarine fiber. They all just think about crossing territories and large territories. And there's a $10 billion fund, the Coronavirus Capital Projects Fund, which was formula allocated to the states. Our amount was about $115 million for broadband. So just over 2 years ago, after substantial discussion involving congressionals, legislative leaders. Governor Ige did designate UH as the lead coordinator for all of the infrastructure projects associated with all of the federal grants. And this includes coordinating with DHHL for the programs that are allocated specifically for tribal lands. DBED is the lead on programs like digital equity, outreach, and training. We are the lead on programs relating to infrastructure, and Vice President Yoshimi is the lead really for the state of Hawaii in the category of other duties as assigned. So we received planning funds from the state. Garrett now has a couple staff helping them, including a senior person who joined us from one of the telecom providers, and working together with state leadership and congressional staff to shape what our proposed uses should look like. Everybody signed off on that. And we submitted a proposal to the federal government about a year ago. And then that was vetted by the federal government as to what we were going to do and how we were going to do it. We received approval just in the end of April this year. So this money has now passed through the processes to UH. You will see some large jumps in the extramural funding associated with this. And there's about $100 million for this program, which includes an inter-island fiber system, some other infrastructure projects, including some work with Hawaii Public Housing Authority as well to get broadband into some low-income public housing facilities. So long story short, we decided to go with a public-private partnership to leverage the federal funds and get some private investment as well, in which the public investment would only have to be this one-time cash, and we would not have to continue to pay operations, but we would get capacity for government and education. Our role in the process would be to really select a vendor who would execute this extremely complex project, monitor it, and then collaborate with other public entities. Essentially, we're an investment partner, and we would receive assets and value proportionate to the federal funds that we put in. So this is where I think it's important for all of you to understand all federal grants that come into UH as a routine matter, we service order those to RCUH to execute. They are not subject to state procurement code. They are not subject to state personnel code. They were created by the legislature explicitly to help UH execute complicated research projects that go beyond what we normally do with state funding. So that project is now at RCUH. Garrett led the publication of an RFP. There were questions once. We pulled back, issued it a second time, just to be sure there would be no questioning. We've done the analysis of the responses. We did get competitive responses, and we are now working with RCUH to finalize a contract with the highest ranked offerer. We have reported back to our federal agency on this, our other federal and state stakeholders, and the goal is to complete this by 2026. So the initial contract is large. You may be asked about it. It's $60 million. We are not bypassing the Board of Regents. This is like any other extramural project where we execute under RCUH's authority for procurement, competitive procurement process. So I want to make sure you know about it if you are asked. We're at the beginning of what really will be a transformational journey for the island to create a competitive environment and a resilient environment, especially for our neighbor islands. And we've pulled it off with incredible collaboration with the state, with federal officials, congressional delegation, and now RCUH. Much more to come on the other projects, and when there's big news, I'll update you, but I think that's it for now. Lastly, let me just very briefly mention two other significant grants to UH. One just was announced yesterday, and it's amazing $6.6 million grant to UH Hilo, Ka Hakaula Oke Likolani, as a consortium with University of Alaska and an Ojibwe tribe on the continent. And this is focused on excellence in Indigenous language revitalization. And it really positions Hilo as the national leader in this area. It has already demonstrated global leadership. This will be the first ever national Native American language resource center in the country. Kudos to Hilo, the entire team, particularly Ka'iu Kimura, and this has been a baby of Senator Schatz as well to focus on this area. I'll just note that our partner in Alaska is at University of Alaska Southeast, where a group of us from Hawaii visited for the launch of the Moana Nui Akea voyage with the Polynesian Voyaging Society. And he's a proud graduate of Hilo and is now our partner working to revitalize his native Alaska language. And lastly, let me just mention a $10.9 million grant to establish a new Pacific Center for Genome Research around health. And that's a partnership with Cancer Center, JABSOM, and a number of others in the university. And I mention it because it's an example of when we talk about strategic research, we are leveraging our unique assets here, which is our diverse population, which makes us interesting to other people. But we do this in service to our people. So it's an incredible opportunity of where we're showing, in this case, the federal government, the opportunities to fulfill their responsibilities to all the people of the country. And we are the only entity in the country that can focus on Native Hawaiians, Asian Americans, and Pacific Islanders in one project.